I'm AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. I think it's time that we confront a certain devious Lich and explore his Spire of Secrets. One of the things I wanted to do when I started this channel was talk about works beyond what WotC provides for D&D. Because, honestly, much of the time, what comes from the independent developers is maybe just a little bit better. That brings us to Valda's Spire of Secrets, developed by the third-party company Mage Hand Press. It has just begun shipping their physical copies of the book, just in time for Christmas. The Kickstarter for this project raised nearly $750,000 last year, with the digital beta copy coming out almost immediately. It took a good while for the physical copy to come out, but everyone's really suffering from that problem, so. What's in the book? This is the third-party supplement to D&D 5e, and there is a lot in it. Before we go any further, let's make a disclaimer. This video is not sponsored by Mage Hand Press. We're just reviewing this product because it looked cool. So, what's the book actually about? The story here is the super powerful Lich Valda is sick and tired of adventurers bursting into his Lich pad and wrecking the place trying to kill him. So he has created a deadly tower of secrets to lure irritating adventurers into and dispose of them discreetly. And to make this successful, he has thoroughly analyzed and categorized the different types of adventurers that come for him so that he can best implement the proper strategies based on what kind of adventure he's facing. That's right, he has categorized the adventurers into something he calls classes. What could those be, I wonder? So what's actually in this book? It's essentially a player's supplement similar to Tasha's Cauldron for Everything, though way, way more expansive. It's mostly for players, and we're going to look at a little bit of what's inside. No, we aren't going to look at every little detail. We'd be here forever. Go buy the thing if you want all that much. We're just going to highlight a few of the things that will really caught our attention. The first chapter highlights 5 new races and their associated subraces. The Mandrake, the Mousefolk, the Spirit Host, and the Near-Human. Then there is the Geppetton, which caught our eye. Named after Geppetto, the fictional woodcarver that created Pinocchio, you can play as a sentient doll, a marionette on strings, a freaking plushie, or my personal favorite, the terrifying bisque porcelain doll. Have you ever seen a porcelain doll that didn't freak you out, or is that just me? They have the unnerving feature, giving them the intimidation skill, an advantage on those checks if the target has not seen you move. I mean, yeah, those creepy dolls are terrifying as hell. They can do extra damage on their first turn of combat and look like a normal doll as long as they don't move. These options for ancestries are super fun. I mean, look at this guy. Look at him. It's a barbarian teddy bear. I want to be that. The second chapter of this book are the original classes that Mage Hand Press has cooked up. And there are 10 of them. Now, I say original, but there are several classes in here that are going to look familiar to some of you. The Alchemist, the Gunslinger, the Investigator, and the Witch. All heavily inspired, if not just outright converted, from Paizo's Pathfinder. For those who don't know, Pathfinder was a D&D clone, whose second edition has really kind of become its own game. But before that, they made a bunch of custom classes for their 3rd edition clone. And these are Mage Hand's attempts to bring them up to date with 5th edition specs. I don't say this as a criticism. We're all playing in D&D's sandbox here. They've done a great job in converting these classes to 5e and putting their own little spin on them. I mean, the Witch was almost unplayable in Pathfinder, but it's become one of my favorite third-party classes in all of 5e. And I'm sure Taliesin Jaffe from Critical Role would have loved access to the Gunslinger instead of converting to a fighter subclass made by Matt Mercer. Not that there's anything wrong with that subclass, but I don't think it really quite delivers on the fantasy of a gunfighter. Valda's also has the Craftsman, which seems inspired by the Artificer, although the inspiration is much more in spirit. The Craftsman is much more its own class and focuses more on specialized equipment, as well as an exotic weapon feature. More usable than the Artificer, if a bit complicated. And some of their original classes are even more unique. The Martyr is a heavy combat class that focuses on high risk, high reward gameplay. More damage you take, the more powerful they get. If you've ever been dissatisfied with how the fantasy of leading a horde of undead is fulfilled in 5e, look no further than the Necromancer class. Sure, a wizard necromancer exists, but that's more of a wizard with a little necromancy flavor added to it. Valda's necromancer is just that, a necromancer. They don't have to wait until level 5 to get undead minions. They get theirs at level 2. You have a lockdown class known as the Warden, but the two classes I really want to highlight are the Captain and the War Mage. There are two features that are of interest to the Captain. If you ever wanted to reproduce having a cohort of followers from older editions, this is the class for that with their cohort feature. It allows you to have a minion following you around and doing your bidding. The minion stats are handily thought out for you and cataloged by type and are basically simpler analogs for the different classes. The Abbot, similar to the Cleric, Champion to the Fighter, Templar to the Paladin, so on and so forth. A lot of the Captain features revolve around the Captain and the cohort working together. The other interesting feature for the Captain are their war tactics. This includes their maneuvers and battle dice, very similar to the Fighter Battle Master maneuvers and superiority dice. Their battle dice start at D8, increase in size and number as they level up. As you would expect, they spend their battle dice to activate one of 3 maneuvers. They don't choose these maneuvers from a list, and the maneuvers themselves do get better as they level up. They also learn additional maneuvers based off their subclass. This leads me to one of the overarching things about this book that I really like. And it's something that we'll continue to see. Valda gives a lot of support to the mechanics in the book. The battle dice may be a core feature of the Captain class, but it appears in other subclasses throughout Valda. The Grey Watchman subclass of the Warden get this feature, as does a subclass for the War Mage, and subclasses from some of the core D&D classes have access to it as well. Though the maneuvers themselves are unique to each class, or subclass that has access to them. Obviously, since it's a core feature of the Captain, they're the most superior with this ability. Not unlike a wizard casting spells as opposed to like an Eldritch Knight or an Arcane Trickster. Now on to the War Mage, which is definitely the class that I was the most interested in and most skeptical about. To sum this class up quickly, it's a spellcaster that only uses cantrips. Now I had serious questions about how that would work, but I was pleasantly surprised when I playtested this myself. What really drives this character is the 2 abilities, War Mage's Edge and War Mage Tricks. War Mage Edge lets you add your intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of a cantrip once per turn. This improves as you level up. For example, at 5th level, your Firebolt cantrip would do 2d10 damage, but War Mage Edge lets you do 3d10 by adding another die to the damage, as well as your intelligence modifier. This is how a Soul Cantrip wielder keeps up in the damage department. But then there are the War Mage Tricks, which are a little like Warlock invocations. Some give additional abilities, like the Cloak of Feathers, giving you an AC of 10 plus Dex plus Intelligence. Others enhance very specific cantrips, like Infinite Variation, which allows you to cast Prestidigitation to copy the effects of any cantrip in the game, as long as it doesn't do damage. The subclasses for the War Mage are all game-oriented, with a bunch being chess-related. House of the Pawn, House of the Knight, etc. Though, no House of the Queen, though. Not sure why. That leads me to another broader point. Valda does a lot to support its own material. Case in point, the subclasses available for their classes. When the Artificer first came out, there were only 3 subclasses available for it, and since then, only 1 has been added. The minimum number of subclasses available to each original class in Valda is 7, with some having 9 to choose from. That's some serious support, but it doesn't stop there. You might think the War Mage having access to only cantrips would be a problem, since there's only so many cantrips in 5e, and quite a few of them are not part of the OGL, meaning Mage Hand Press can't use them. But you'd be wrong in that statement. Valda has a plethora of new spells and cantrips, some of which are clearly created with the War Mage in mind. From creating temporary force shields and weapons, to a host of new elemental attacks that inflict various conditions. Yeah, the War Mage, plenty of options. Chapter 3 features new subclasses for the core classes in D&D, Fighter, the Wizard, etc. And there's no end to them. All the classes are represented here except for the Artificer, of course. Every class has 6 new subclasses to choose from. All in all, I think it's like 135 subclasses total between new and core classes. That's a ton of design. A massive amount of work went into this book. Some standouts include the Barbarian's Rage Mage, which is something people have been hungry for. There are 1/3 spellcasters like the Eldritch Knight, so not a lot of magic. They choose spells from the evocation and transmutation schools. They can cast and concentrate on spells while raging. As it turns out, a little spell casting with raging barbarians doesn't break the game. There are some interesting meme options, like the sorcerer's tune magic, or the meta warlock with the enigmatic patron known as the GM. One of my favorite is the magic missile mage for the wizard, which is an entire subclass devoted to being better at the magic missile spell. A classic, if sometimes underappreciated, first level spell. They can add more missiles to their castings of the spell, as well as create a whirling shield of missiles that zip around and protect them. Chapter 4 is on customization, which I think is more of a catch-all name for a bunch of mechanics that just don't fit anywhere else. The rules for multiclassing are in here. There is a new feature called auxiliary levels. They're basically one-level classes that fulfill some archetype. You want to be something like a warlock, but don't have a 13 in charisma and multiclass? Then take the cultist level, which will give you some warlock cantrips, among a few other things. Or maybe you're a bard and you really want subtle spell meta magic, but you don't want to take 3 levels of sorcerer or a feat to get it. Then take the clandestine caster auxiliary level, which gives you subtle spell once per short rest and makes all of your cantrips invisible. There are some feats in this chapter too. They're mostly what you would expect. Feats that give you access to some of the book's new features, like Battle Adept, which gives a character some of the captain's battle maneuvers, or Hexer, which gives some of the witch's hexes to a character. There are a few innovative options, though. Downcaster and Upcaster let you sacrifice higher level spell slots to create lower level spell slots, or combine lower level spell slots to create higher level spell slots. And then we have starter feats. These are feats given at first level for free, should a player wish. And this is probably where my first real criticism comes into play. I think it's important to give an honest review, and despite how much I like this book, and I do like it, there are a few places in it that are a little troublesome. These starter feats are give and take feats. You get some kind of bonus and some kind of negative. My issue with this is that it's too easy for one character to pick a feat where the negative is easily ignored and the benefit is almost game warping. But then have another character that just doesn't want to deal with any of the extra, or takes something thematic but it's not very beneficial. For instance, you might have a character who just wants to blow everything up and take the Arcane Preparation feat, which causes spells to be prepared as they were in 3rd edition. Each spell slot needs to be pre-chosen. If you have 3 first level spell slots, then you would have something like 2 magic missiles and 1 shield prepared. But the advantage is that you get an extra spell slot per level. Someone that just wants to play a blaster and doesn't care about loss and spell flexibility is really going to like this. But then you have someone who wants to play a wizened old wizard who takes the elderly feat, which gives him extra skill proficiencies at the cost of having his lifting and carrying capacity halved. Very thematic and cool. Unfortunately, they're playing in an Out of the Abyss campaign module where the sort of thing needs to be tracked closely. And now they're really going to struggle. Or maybe a player wants the child feat. Now the DM needs to wrestle with the moral implications of putting a child in danger. Don't get me wrong, some of this is cool, but I foresee it causing problems at the table, so proceed with caution. Chapter 5 is for equipment. This section brings back some old staple weapons from earlier editions, like the Qatar or the Bastard Sword. They also brought back exotic weapons, also an earlier edition feature. These are extensive, but that's kind of weird because only Craftsman class can use them outside of maybe taking a feat. Seems like a lot of content restricted to just one class. Even the new weapons are kind of meh. Mostly it's just simple iterations, like the Estoc is just a long sword that does piercing damage, and the Cutlass is a slashing rapier. Neat, but nothing game-breaking or revolutionary. There are magic items in here as well. They're mostly what you would expect. I compliment Valda for taking the effort to support all their new ideas in this book. Most of their items are pretty straightforward. For instance, the Witch's Pentacle of Woe is going to work pretty much like their Druid's Moonsickle or the Wizard's Arcane Grimoire. A plus to spell attack rolls and DC saves based on the rarity, plus they use a Hex as a bonus action instead of an action 3 times per day. Nice. And there's a bunch of these in the chapter. Chapter 6 is where the spells dwell. No part of this book exemplifies the efforts the creators of Valda's put into supporting the different classes and other features they created by looking at how many new spells they made. There is a whole class that, for the most part, only uses cantrips, and they made a bunch of new cantrips. There's a class for being a necromancer, and the body for necromancy spells in 5e is not great. So they made a bunch of new ones to help fulfill that dark fantasy. And there are a ton of new spells, 137 to be exact. One cantrip called Quick Step is cast with a bonus action to give 10 feet to your movement speed. There is a line of Ghoul spells that do everything from letting you mark another creature as a sacrifice so that when you get hit in combat, you switch places with the sacrifice, and they are hit in your stead. All the way to sending skulls of people to scream them to death. But my favorite is the Defenestration spell. Don't know what Defenestration is? It's the act of throwing someone through a window. And that's what this spell does. It throws your target through a window. Oh, there isn't a window nearby? Well, no worries. It magically creates one for you. I love these spells. The 7th and last chapter is a series of appendices. The first discusses alternate rules that can be used. Some are old, like the idea of taking 10 for skill checks or using potions as a bonus action. And some are new ones, like the speed dice. Speed dice are just meant to speed up combat rounds. If you can get your action, bonus action, and movement done in a minute, your first damage roll gets an extra d6. So you can tell the wizard who casts animate objects on 10 silver pieces to hurry the hell up. What? The second appendices has all the new familiar stats, mostly for the witch. Look at this adorable little guy, a winter wolf pup. He's cute and evil. The third appendices has weird Frankenstein graphs that you can suture to your person or your minions. By sacrificing a bunch of hit points and hit dice, you can replace your heart with a construct's core, allow you to ignore some exhaustion and take shorter rests. Or you can craft a dragon's hide to your skin and have natural AC of 17. The last appendices involves a new game that takes place in D&D called Siege Ball. I say new, but it's originated in forums involving D&D 3.5. This is mostly a tower defense game, where the players defend their own tower while trying to knock down the opponents. They can't attack the tower themselves, no, but they can attack the ball into the tower. But after all this, the spells, the new classes, subclasses, you might be thinking something's missing. Where was the Spire? The book is called Valda's Spire of Secrets, right? So is there some cool map that shows a location where all these new features are spread throughout? Maybe some mini adventure to introduce Valda and his Spire. Well, no. Outside of a quick blurb in the beginning, there's no mention of the Spire. Valda has a funny little quote spread throughout the book, so that's something. I just wish the name matched what was inside. You can't tease me with a super lich and his deadly tower of cool stuff and not deliver. But other than that, this book has so very much in it that to say I have only scratched the surface gives an insult to scratches. I'll put a link below if you want to get your own copy and draw your own conclusions. Overall, it's probably my favorite third-party D&D book, so take that for what it's worth. If you want more third-party reviews, then you're going to have to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button. Tell me in the comments if you've read any of this book and what your thoughts are on it. And I'll see you in the parlor.